In a region marked by wars and short-lived kingdoms, a people without an empire, without an army, and without territory managed to achieve the unthinkable: survival. How did they do it? It wasn't thanks to weapons, but rather to a very powerful idea and a unity forged through their traditions with a greater purpose. This is the story of the Hebrew people, a story of promises, exile, faith, and resilience. In this video, we'll learn how the idea of a single God emerged, the story of Abraham, the first of the patriarchs, and his children, especially Joseph, about the captivity in Egypt, and the liberation leading to the encounter with the Promised Land. And remember, there are many more videos like this one on our YouTube channel, so give us a like and subscribe to keep being part of our community. Since with each of your contributions, we can keep making more and more amazing videos.
The Ancient Israelites, Part 1. Over the course of history, many nations have risen and stood out. But regardless of how strong or powerful they were, most of them, sooner or later, ended up disappearing or being swallowed by other nations. Ancient civilizations were invaded, nations were conquered, and some cultures completely disappeared in the sands of time. However, there was a very small nation that, despite the fact that it had barely any military might, managed to last to this day across the vast ocean of history. These were the ancient Israelites, who managed to endure thanks to a powerful belief they held, which was that they were God's chosen people. The story of Abraham. The stories of the Israelites can be found in a very special book. Can any of you guess what the name of this book is?
Peter Pan? Sleeping Beauty?
No.
Little Red Riding Hood?
Not that one either. The book is the Torah.
Ah.
The story goes that around the year 1900 BC, Abraham, the son of a sculptor from the city of Ur, made a deal with God, who promised him the lands of Canaan. Abraham gathered together his people, and they packed up all their things and set off on the long journey to the lands that had been promised to them by God. So the Israelites settled in the lands of Canaan. But there was a slight problem. It wasn't just the Israelites that were interested in the lands of Canaan. In fact, many other peoples wanted to settle these lands. This was because the lands of Canaan were very rich and fertile. They were also located between two great kingdoms of the age, Egypt in North Africa and Babylon in Mesopotamia. These incredibly powerful kingdoms were fighting over this area because a great number of trade routes passed through it. But this land was a lot more than just a fertile zone to the Israelites. It was their promised land. But the pact that Abraham had made with God involved one more thing. Abraham and his nation had to renounce all religions that worshipped many gods, and they had to accept the existence of just one single God, the creator of all things.
Can an idea be stronger than an empire? What does it mean to be the chosen people, and how does a promise stay alive for more than 3,000 years? Let us know what you think about these questions in the comments, and remember you can join the channel to watch all our videos without limits. Plus, you'll get access to other exclusive materials just for members.
The patriarchs. I, Abraham, am the leader of my people. This makes me the first patriarch. A patriarch means the male head of a family. This meant he imposed the laws and was also the religious head. The patriarch was the leader for his wife, children, and also the children of closely related families. When the patriarch died, the oldest male child became the new patriarch, and so on and so on. The oldest son of Abraham was Isaac, and Isaac's son was Jacob. Jacob became famous because he had 12 sons, and each one became the patriarch of his own tribe. These were the 12 original tribes of the nation of Israel. And it is said that the people of modern-day Israel are all descended from these tribes. Captivity in Egypt. So let's go back to Jacob and his 12 sons, who were the great-grandsons of the great Abraham. One son, Joseph, had a special gift. He had dreams about the future. One day, Joseph told his brothers about one of his dreams. In this dream, his brothers praised him and bowed before him. Well, this dream made his brothers so angry that they threw him down a well and then sold him to a caravan of traders who were going to Egypt. In Egypt, Joseph was made a slave and imprisoned. But his ability to interpret dreams made him famous and eventually brought him to the attention of the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh told Joseph about his own dreams. In one of them, there were 7 very fat cows, then 7 very skinny cows. Joseph warned the Pharaoh that after 7 years of plentiful food, there would come 7 years of hardship. The Pharaoh was convinced. He freed Joseph and gave him a job.
You will be my viceroy.
The years of hunger came, as Joseph predicted. The Pharaoh was prepared and had stored away enough food to feed his people. But Joseph's 11 brothers were hungry. They traveled with their families to Egypt looking for something to eat. And it was Joseph who took care of them. But things were about to change. A new Pharaoh was made ruler of Egypt. And he wasn't like the last one. He feared and despised the Israelites. He made them all slaves and treated them terribly. It is commonly believed that the slavery in Egypt lasted about 200 years. One day, a man was born who would become a great leader, a true hero, and this man was called Moses.
What did Moses do to free the Jews from slavery? What were the 7 plagues that God sent to Egypt to make them free his people? Did that really happen in Egypt? Find the answers to these questions by joining our YouTube channel.
Moses freed his people from slavery, and they left Egypt, only to spend the next 40 years wandering the desert. During this period, Moses climbed to the top of Mount Sinai, where God gave Moses the 10 Commandments. These commandments were like a code of conduct that people should follow. The Hebrews protected them in the Ark of the Covenant and transported them across the desert. They believed that the long years of wandering were a test God gave them before allowing them to return to their promised land of Canaan. Let's dig a little deeper with our time compass and find out about other codes of conduct in ancient times. It is said that Moses received the 10 Commandments from God. These laws were a code of conduct the Israelites were to follow. These laws were so important, they built the great Temple of Jerusalem to protect them.
And why were these laws so important? Wouldn't it be better if everybody just did what they wanted?
Well, no, not really. Imagine if everybody just did what they wanted. People could rob, lie, or even kill without being judged by their peers.
Oh, so before Moses, everybody basically just fought against each other, and only the strongest person would be able to make the rules.
Kind of. Every society has rules of how people need to behave in order to get along. But sometimes they can change, depending on the whims of the most powerful. Some 500 years before Moses, around 1700 BC, a Babylonian king named Hammurabi conquered a vast region of Mesopotamia. But each region that he had conquered had its own set of rules, and none of them were written down. So the rules could change depending on the ruler of the time. This led to much confusion and fighting because no one really knew what the rules were. So how could they follow them? So Hammurabi carved history's first code of conduct onto a large stone column. From then on, there were no longer any doubts about what the laws of the land were, since it was carved on stone for everyone to see. And because it was carved in stone, nobody could easily change it, not even kings. In the next episode of The Time Compass, The Ancient Israelites Part 2. After many years of wandering, the ancient Israelites finally returned to their land, and thus began a magnificent period for their civilization. The time of the kings of Israel. It was during this time that a great story was born about a young shepherd named David who volunteered to fight the Philistines' greatest warrior, a giant named Goliath. Even though David was very small, he was able to beat Goliath using his intelligence instead of his strength. David, armed with only a slingshot, landed a blow right between Goliath's eyes. Having defeated the Philistines' greatest warrior, David drove out the Philistines and brought peace to the land. He became king of Canaan and made Jerusalem the capital. Solomon did his best to avoid wars and invasions. But the ancient kingdom was surrounded by others, such as the Assyrians, Babylonians, and Egyptians, all of whom wanted the fertile lands of Canaan. Around the year 539 BC, the Israelites returned to the holy city of Jerusalem, where they reconstructed the famous temple built by Solomon. All the hardships they had overcome had made their convictions even stronger, and they gradually decided to isolate themselves from other nations. They wrote down many of the stories of their past and the holy mandates of their religion. They contained these stories and teachings in a book called the Torah.
And remember, everything is amazing when you have the desire to learn.